Hey guys, welcome to the DEMCAD channel. It's a live show and I want to talk about a number of things. The most obvious topic is Ebola. I want to talk about Ebola. I want to talk about Gaza, Israel, that whole situation. And especially Gaza and Israel. It's something I haven't really talked a lot about on my show. And I haven't spent a lot of time focusing on Israel, mainly because I've been focused mostly on the United States and its own problems. And if it were up to me, that's what we would be focusing primarily on. I think that there's too many special interest groups that represents Israel, and they're having too much of an influence on American policy, our foreign policy. And I think we need to get more back. We need to get back to a point where we actually have leaders in Washington, D.C. looking out for the actual American people. And speaking of which, the whole border situation is absolutely a disgrace. It's embarrassing having all these people come across the border because they think they're going to get some type of amnesty, and who knows, they might actually get that. And it just shows you where the country's moved to. You know, can you really even call the United States of America a real country if people don't have any solid values to hold on to, if people aren't willing to at least protect its borders? Yeah, what's the point of having a country if you can't protect your own borders? It doesn't make any sense. We can't provide good jobs for people who are already in our country, and now we have more illegals coming across the border, and it's a really frustrating thing. But first, Ebola. Okay, Ebola, the Ebola virus. Now, what makes this virus so devastating is that it doesn't just kill you. It's really how it goes about killing you. Okay, the first symptoms are basically a headache. When you get the virus, you pretty much get a headache, and you start to have a muscle ache. Your muscles start to ache. You have muscle pain. You also get to the point where you develop rashes, and you also start to just get a fever, just physically get sick and fatigued and really drained by the symptoms. It just really drains you. And then you start to develop, in the later stages, kidney problems. Your kidneys start to shut down, your liver starts to shut down, you start to bleed from orifices, all of your orifices, and you just start to bleed from your nose, from your mouth in some instances, and other places. You can use your imagination. And people basically bleed from the inside out. They have mostly internal injuries, internal bleeding, and they lose blood. They die of dehydration. So what they try to do is try to get the, for example, they might try to, in an SHCF type situation, someone with limited resources might try to get a person Gatorade or something like that. And also, they would also have to treat the internal bleeding. Obviously, the real procedure is a lot more complicated than that. But essentially, dehydration and bleeding, you just bleed to death, even from the inside. Even if you exclude the blood that's coming out of your body, out of your nose and other areas in your body, internally is almost like your organs are almost liquefying in a way. They just leak and leak and leak, and you just bleed out. So anyway, you guys have a number. Here's our first caller right here. Let's see what this person has to say. And I really want to do this show because I want you guys to share your thoughts on what's going on. Hey, welcome to the show. You're the first caller. What's on your mind?
Oh, okay. I'm just an old fan from Miami, and I've been watching your show for a while, and I'm trying to get prepared and move to my place in Oklahoma.
Okay, so why did you choose Oklahoma?
That's what I could afford. I went online, I looked all over the whole United States, and it was an old man wanted to sell his 5 acres of mobile home. I got it for 15 grand.
So you bought a mobile home for $15,000. Okay. So why did you choose a mobile home?
No. It's already on the property.
Okay. Okay. Does it work and everything?
Yeah. Yeah. And I bought one down here in Miami, and I plan to pull it up there, and I have solar on top of it, so at least I have, some electricity.
So why did you decide to go to Oklahoma? Why not any other state? What were some of the factors that made you decide, okay, I'm prepping and I'm going to go to this state? Do you have a job there? Are you retired?
No. I'm just a little swim teacher in Miami.
You're a teacher in Miami?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you going to find a job? Have you looked for a job in Oklahoma or your new location?
No, it's paid for, and hopefully I could be self-supporting. I could plant my seeds or grow my trees, and if I gotta make wax candles or get some bees and get some honey, I'll do that. But you know, the Lord provide, and you know, I have like a little bounce house business down here. I could take it there.
Okay, so you have some type of income, you know, because that's something I would be concerned about, going from one state to another without having a solid income. Have you conducted any research on the market for your business?
No, over there, there's nothing there. It's just trees. It's up in the mountains. I don't know Oklahoma even had mountains.
Are you married?
No.
Okay. You have any kids? No.
No.
Okay. Well, see, I mention these questions because these are all things you have to think about if you're going to move from one location to another. Do you plan on meeting any women? Are there any women around there? I mean, I know it's sort of a weird question, but like, yeah, I mean, socially, what's the plan? Is to live out in the middle of nowhere, or?
No, I know that we're supposed to, you know, leave from the big city to the smaller towns or to the mountains, and I found a place in the mountains, and it's wood and it's off grid. And I've been saving for my water well because everybody's fishing water. So when I go up, hopefully in September, I'll get my water well dug. And you know, I just want to take everything up there and get settled and start planting trees for fruit trees and stuff. And then, you know, come back and work a little bit and just go back and forth. And
have you ever lived alone before?
Not really, kind of, when I was in Miami Beach.
Okay.
But right now I'm living at my mom's right now.
All right, man. Well, I wish you luck, man. Thank you for calling, man.
For sure.
All right, take care. Hey, welcome to the show. Hey, welcome to the... Okay, that was a little weird. Oh, wow. Yeah, when somebody's on, it's hard for me to really switch over to the next person, so sorry about that. All right, guys. Yeah, you guys got to really do a lot of research if you want to think about going from one location to another, just moving out to the middle of nowhere. But anyway, back to Ebola. It's a devastating disease, and the way it spreads is really through direct contact. Now, there's other ways it can really spread. For example, if you got sweat on somebody, and you, or if you know, maybe if you coughed on somebody and some of the droplets actually got onto somebody and the person touched it, they wiped their nose with it. That's one way it can be transmitted. That's one possibility. Hey, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, how's it going? Just wanted to make some comments on the
Sure.
Ebola situation. And you know, what's funny to me is how they say it's not, you know, capable of being transmitted via air, which is, you know, I believe there's no evidence for that. But why wouldn't you make certain, I guess, you know, precautions just in case it decided to mutate? Like, when I was seeing on CNN how they were transporting the guy or whatever, like, why isn't he in some type of oxygen, you know, capsule or something? Like,
he was in there. That's exactly what they did. They put him in a capsule. Okay, first, just so you guys know that about I don't know why people keep calling while somebody is on air. Just so you guys know, there's about the death toll is somewhere around 826 people in South and pretty much in Western Africa. People who died of this Ebola virus. Now they had this American doctor over there who was trying to help out, and he was helping working with the sick people, and he got infected himself. So the CDC decided to bring him back to the U.S. They decided to bring him to a hospital in Atlanta. They put him in a tube, an isolation tube, and they put that tube on a plane, right? This container on a plane, private jet. They flew him over. Then they put him into an ambulance that also had where he stayed in a containment tube, you know, and he was also in an outfit, in a NBC outfit, for nuclear, biological, chemical type of outfit. So you guys know about that. And then they transported him to the hospital where he's going to be dealing with people, where he's going to have doctors, specialists, people who specialize in this field working with him. Now, they did have some precautions, and it seemed to go pretty well. And they actually said the guy walked into the hospital on his own with a little assistance, and the guy apparently is doing better. So they did take some precautions.
Yeah, I think they tried some experimental serum or something for that guy. to the details with that. But I'm also curious. Okay, they were saying how hard it is to catch the virus and how you have to really be in contact with somebody in order to catch it. And it's like, if that's the case, this guy who's obviously trained, on how to not get the virus, and he gets it, like.
Yeah, there's another American.
Yeah.
There's another American as well, a woman. She's like 58 years old, and she was a missionary. See, both of them were missionaries. They were both over there in Western Africa trying to help people. And the doctor was actually a part of this Christian organization that sent doctors over to Africa to help people out. Well, he was actually working in, I think, Liberia. And this American woman, she's 59 years old. She also has 2 kids. They both have 2 kids, respectively. She also has 2 kids. She's a 59-year-old woman. She's a missionary. They're going to be transporting her pretty much in the same way that they transported the doctor, who also got sick. And she actually got infected because she was washing people down in the decontamination zone. And some of that stuff apparently got into her face. I don't know how that would happen. If you're spraying somebody down, you should also be in a suit as well. But it's a testament to how easy it is for this virus to be transmitted. How little of this virus you need to make contact and actually have a transmission is absolutely incredible.
Yeah. I mean, for all the precautions it seems like they're taking. What concerns me is when the people who know what they're doing are contracting the virus. All these doctors and whatnot over there. They're catching it. I think the head guy for that region got it.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you for calling, man. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. Take care.
Have a good day.
All right, you too. Yeah. What would you do if? Because I was actually speaking with a professional, a medical healthcare professional. I'm not going to say much about the guy other than I'm going to just call him B. Okay, let's just call him B. He's a medical professional. He obviously works in the field. And he told me straight up, if it popped up in his area, he's not going to risk his life and risk his wife's life, his children's life, or for example. I mean, I wouldn't blame anybody for risking their children's lives working in an area like that where, if you go to work, you could possibly contract Ebola. And then you got to worry about, okay, if I go home, am I going to give it to my wife? Am I going to give it to my husband? Am I going to give it to my kids? This guy basically said he wouldn't even put himself in that situation. Hello? Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing, bud?
Doing all right. So, what's on your mind?
Well, actually, I was calling out from Sebastian, Florida.
Okay. So, I mean, what would you do if you were a healthcare professional and you were in a situation where, you knew this stuff was in your area, you knew this stuff was in your state, you knew it was in, I don't know, Nebraska, you knew it was in Illinois. I mean, would you actually go to the hospital? I mean, you have an obligation, it seems, to help people because that's why you got into that field. But at what point do you say, okay, going to work would put my family at risk? It's my responsibility to take care of my family. I know I want to help people, but I can't do this at the risk of hurting my own family. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, sorry about that. I had a little bit of a delay. I had to turn off the feed so that I'd be able to speak to you. I'm calling from Sebastian, Florida. I wanted to get your thoughts on what you would consider to be a possible outcome if somebody with Ebola actually went to a place like Disney or Universal Studios, considering you can't get into Disney unless you use a biometric finger scanner, and if the main way the disease gets from person to person is by contact or by touching something someone else has touched. When you touch that biometric reader, that's the same 1 inch by 1 inch piece of glass that everybody that goes into the park touches. And if somebody with Ebola touches it, pretty much anybody who touches it after them is going to be also getting the disease as well and spreading it throughout the park.
And I mean, by the time you know what the hell happened, they've already gone home and touched other people in the park. They touched other people in the park, shaking hands, rubbed against one another, touched their own face, other people's face. They've already gone home and interacted with their family and kids, and now those people are out interacting. It can still transmit it, and they can be asymptomatic, and you don't even know if they're actually passing along to other people. Where you just see the person doesn't even look that sick.
Well, with that being the case, why do you think that they haven't made any announcements, considering that they're are several different strands, and some of the strands are airborne, and some of them, even though they don't consider them airborne, still can be deposited into the air because they get dropped into air molecules that just float, and then people passing by walk through them and they get it, or through touch. And considering so many things that a lot of these attractions are interactive and you are touching them, there are so many different ways for you to be able to contract a disease like that when there is a contagion that does get out. Why don't they close down or temporarily close parks and other areas that have millions of people that go through them every day to cut back on the chances of possible infections?
Because that will cause a panic. A panic they fear will be worse than the initial disease itself. As of now, it's pretty much an African problem. It's not necessarily a U.S. problem. And they're concerned about the economic impact.
So people won't be panicked until somebody here gets it and they wind up having to quarantine a small town somewhere, and then people will start waking up to what's going on.
That's pretty much, I think they're concerned about panic. They're concerned about economic consequences, because even though it's a government, you have to understand that there's still corporations that have a lot of sway in that. And if they were to do something like that, it would impact a lot of corporations and their bottom line. That's just my opinion. Is there a radio? Is there some type of speaker on in the background? All right, man. Well, thank you for calling, man. I appreciate it. Sorry about that. All right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, please turn the speaker down when you call in. It's really hard to really deal with. I should probably actually shut the door because you have these cars that's driving by there. But yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure because even when you have people in the CDC, you have people. You got to think about once certain individuals leave the CDC, they're going to want to have jobs in the private sector, and you have people from the private sector in the CDC. So I don't think they have to measure, okay, how do we respond to this and keep it contained without really panicking people, and also without creating a harsh economic consequence because of what we're doing. If we start to shut down parks and stuff like that, then people will start to freak out, and that would have a huge economic impact. And of course, you have the midterm elections coming up. So the last thing you want in government, you don't want any senator. Imagine being a senator, running for re-election, and they're shutting down parks and stuff before an election. You're gonna be pissed off that people are freaking out. Of course, that's selfish, but you got to think about that stuff. All right, hey, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, all right.
I'm doing all right.
I was listening to one of your videos earlier, and one of the things that you didn't mention was the Reston virus, which took place outside of D.C.
What was that again?
One of the things you didn't touch on was the Reston strain of the Ebola virus that took place in D.C. and Virginia.
No, I didn't.
That was airborne.
I know nothing about that. I've only been looking at the Zaire strain because that has a fatality of around 90%. Although I think right now Sierra Leone, I think the virus has somewhere around a 55% mortality rate. But tell us more.
Well, what happened was it was actually they're monkey keepers is what they were. Basically, their sole responsibility was to act as an incubation house for monkeys when they came in from overseas. And what wound up happening is the infection got into one of the monkeys, and these monkeys were kept in separate isolation rooms, and it made it through the air vents where all the monkeys got sick, and the CDC was forced to come in, along with the U.S. Army, and kill off all the monkeys.
Sounds like a plot to a movie. When did this actually happen?
This happened back in the 80s.
And where was this at?
It was in Reston, Virginia, right outside of D.C.
Huh.
A book called The Hot Zone, written by a guy named Richard Preston, which has the real-life events that took place with that outbreak. And it was a strain of Ebola from the Zaire strain. But the thing was that it was only affecting the monkeys, but it was an airborne Ebola virus. And if you're following this virus carefully, the new outbreak that just took place, this strain is different than Zaire.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen any evidence of that, though. People are saying that, it's airborne, and they're also saying there was a scientist claiming that it was airborne from I think a pig or a guinea pig to another animal, but I haven't seen any evidence of Ebola being airborne in the sense that you can get it while just being in the same room with somebody. Like, for example, if I was infected and you were way over there on the other side of the room, just by breathing in the same room, you can get infected. You can end up in the air around here. You can get affected that way. Now, that's how I would consider it to be airborne, not I sneeze and cough in an area and then you walk through it. And I mean, I guess technically you could say it was airborne in that sense, but by airborne, I mean it has to be able to stay up in the air for a long period of time without resting down on a surface.
Right. You're absolutely correct. Now, with the resting virus, it wasn't aerosol airborne. It was airborne, meaning that it lived within the air particles on the dust and traveled through the rooms that these monkeys were being housed in.
So you're concerned that it may be an airborne strain at some point.
Exactly. When you've got over 100 workers that have been infected with this particular strain, there's a good chance that it's airborne, and they just haven't identified it as such.
And by the time they identify it, then it'll be pretty much too late. I think if it was airborne and it hit a major airport, I mean, it just spread all over the world, and with this fatality rate, I mean, you would basically be dealing with an apocalyptic type of situation. Not to really scare anybody, but I'm just saying, like, practically speaking, if you have something with like a 90% fatality rate or even a 55% fatality rate and it's spreading all across the country, all across the world, I mean, that would absolutely destroy the economy. There was a scare in London where they thought this 72-year-old passenger had the Ebola virus. He was vomiting, and he was from I think South Africa, Western Africa, I think Sierra Leone, and they were freaking out over it. It turns out, huh?
72-year-old female from Freetown.
Oh, it was a female. Sorry about that, guys. I know it's a 72-year-old, and they basically freaked out about it. Apparently, the symptoms didn't match Ebola, but I haven't seen any conclusive tests that prove that the person didn't have Ebola virus. So.
Well, they were going to test on the lady. They said that it came back negative for Ebola, but I'm not saying you can trust your government 100% of the time. You know, I brought up some good points about the economy and causing a panic. So even if she did have it, we would probably wouldn't know if she did have it or not, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I just want to bring up the political aspect of it. I know a lot of people don't want to talk about that, but, you know, governments, you know, they are very much influenced by corporations, and they are influenced by elections. There's good things about elections, and there's bad things about elections. You know, and that's just a reality that people have to deal with. So thank you for calling. Thank you for sharing information.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
All right, you too. All right, now it's open. Okay, so yeah, I don't think we're at the point where it's doing that, or at least I haven't seen enough evidence. And I've been criticized for just pretty much believing what the mainstream media is putting out there. And for me, I have to be careful because I don't feel comfortable getting up on camera saying that, oh, it's airborne and it's this and that, and I don't have any evidence. You know, they could be lying to us, but I don't know. Until I have the evidence, I don't feel comfortable saying that, oh, it's airborne, but I can't prove it. Hey, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, DEMCAD. I wanted to call and say that I listen to your show all the time, and I love it, and thank you for making your videos.
I appreciate it.
And I wanted to talk about the situation with Ebola and also some of the illnesses that might spread around because of our immigration problem in border states.
I've been thinking about that. Go ahead.
You know, Ebola, from what I have read about it, it is very preventable, and I think that what might be happening in parts of Africa is that Western medicine, Western education is being persecuted as something that is going to cause their community problems. And, you know, I have read that simply washing your hands, you know, and can get the infection off of your body if you wash it. And I've also read that Ebola patients, they are throwing up, they have diarrhea, they have bodily fluids everywhere, and other people are having to pick it up. Their children or their family members, whoever is taking care of them, and that is probably how they are contracting this virus.
But don't forget, there was a doctor. A doctor was there to help people. He got infected, and there was a woman who was actually spraying down people in the decontamination zone who also got it. So if you have somebody who's there supposedly trained to deal with decontamination, that person's getting it, and you have doctors getting it. I mean, you imagine a doctor would be more cautious than just about anybody. If they're able to get it, then what does that say? So.
Do you think that maybe an education in how to prevent these things could help? Yeah, because
sure, but I mean,
you're going to take care of somebody with Ebola. You are risking it. You know you're taking a chance.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big risk.
But there are also, guys, people, children coming in from the Mexican border who are also, viruses, illnesses are sort of running rampant among them. They don't have vaccinations like we do, and, they can spread around some of these things that have been here in the Southwest in the past. Tuberculosis. We had an outbreak of whooping cough in California over the winter. Every winter whooping cough seems to come back. And I feel like a lot of people will bring these illnesses here. And I think it's a big problem. You're in the northeast region and I'm here in the southwest. But those are the things that I think we should be more concerned about in this area, is those guys that are coming in from, Mexico and Honduras, all over, Central America, and bringing in things that might really affect us, probably more than the Ebola virus.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I always wonder, what would happen if a terrorist got a hold of, one infected person with Ebola, and they actually use that as an agent to spread Ebola in, a shopping mall or maybe an airport. This is sort of a 24. I sound like I'm a writer for the TV show 24 right now, but I always thought, what would happen if they try to use something like that as a weapon? What would really stop them at this point? Since we have such loose borders, what would actually stop somebody? At some point, that's going to really catch up with us. But anyway, that's a great point. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for your videos. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, I mean, I was speaking to that healthcare professional today just about that, and I was actually going to do a video with him. But I was just talking to him about that, and it's like you said, really nothing would stop somebody from doing something like that. Obviously, I don't want that to happen, but that's definitely a concern. Okay, Dreamland Nightmare said his connection is too slow to watch live feed. Well, I know what that's like because the connection here isn't really that good. My Comcast connection in Flint, Michigan was a lot better than what I'm finding here in rural Kentucky, eastern Kentucky. It's a lot better. Okay, Sergeant Whiskey Jack said that she didn't die from Ebola. Please learn about Ebola. It's a physical structure that doesn't allow it to stay on the surfaces like, say, the Nova virus. I don't know. It seems to be pretty damn infectious. I will say that, though. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rich. This is a healthcare professional.
Hey, I just called you B or a healthcare professional. For now on, we'll just call you the healthcare professional.
How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well, man. Yeah, so please share. Jeez, why do people? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry for joining you late. I think there's a bit of a delay on the video that I'm catching right now, but so I think that you've gone ahead and talked about Ebola a little bit. And there's some people out there. I just heard a lady talking about how porous our borders are.
Sure. Yeah, I already explained to them about the healthcare professionals who acquired it in Africa. Why are people calling when somebody's on air? Go ahead.
Oh, no, I mean, I think she has a very legitimate point. That's something that we talk about in the healthcare field all the time, is that, we have a lot of these kids. They're from, some very poor areas. They haven't been immunized. And we have a lot of our border agents, a lot of people who are not trained in the healthcare field being exposed to some potentially very dangerous diseases. She mentioned tuberculosis. I don't want to, scare anybody, but it's not just tuberculosis.
Smallpox.
There's a strain out there called multi-drug resistant tuberculosis that, they can't treat.
Well, tell us more about that.
Go ahead.
Tell us more about that.
Multi-drug tuberculosis basically is a resistant strain of tuberculosis against every kind of antibiotic that we would use to go ahead and treat tuberculosis.
So what else should we be concerned about? How common is that in places like Mexico and other countries where
Well, one of the things about multi-drug resistant tuberculosis is you have individuals who, for whatever reason, they didn't finish the regime of antibiotics. Maybe they didn't get enough antibiotics to fully treat the disease. They weren't fully cured, or maybe they were exposed to somebody who already had multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. With tuberculosis, it's not infectious unless somebody's coughing, and that's a pulmonary form of tuberculosis. So if you ever see anybody out there, and this is anybody who's listening, if you see anybody who's coughing up blood, this is someone that you want to get to the hospital as soon as possible. Try to always wear a mask around them, or try not to be around where they're breathing, because it's highly infectious. And if you are diagnosed with tuberculosis, or God forbid the multi-drug resistant strain, I mean, we're talking a potential death sentence as well.
So how concerned are you about this Ebola situation? They're actually bringing these guys to the States, which I thought was an unnecessary risk. Although now they are sending like 50 American doctors or specialists to Africa to help them out. But
God bless those doctors. I mean, but you actually bring the virus into the United States. Why would we do that? I mean, earlier you and I were talking, and you brought up a very good point, Reg. What can we do here in the States that we can't pack up and take to Africa and do?
Yeah, and plus, if you pack your stuff and go to Africa, you don't have to worry about bringing it to another continent, and you can help other people there, and not just a doctor. Like, who would want to go there anyway, if your only response to helping Americans getting sick is to bring them over here and just say to hell with anybody else there? And what type of message are you sending when you're saying, oh, well, anyway, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why can't you pack up your stuff and bring it there? It seems like a smarter strategy than risking bringing it across the Atlantic Ocean to another continent, unless they have something there that we don't know about. And obviously, it's the CDC, so that's possible.
Exactly. I mean, I think you had a very good point. And as I told you before, bringing some kind of horrible disease like Ebola into the United States and you put it in a lab someplace, isn't this how every cheesy end of the world movie on sci-fi starts out? With the best intentions, and then some asshat, lets it out of the lab, and before you know it, it's spreading. And I don't care what those people on the CDC say. If it gets into a major population center like New York, Atlanta, Washington, what have you, I defy them to be able to clamp down on the outbreak in such a timely manner that it doesn't spread amongst the population.
And they're in Atlanta. I mean, it's basically it's a major airplane hub here in the United States. All kinds of flights go to Atlanta. I mean, there could be flights, you'd be going to the West Coast and going from the Midwest to the West Coast, and they'll bring you through Atlanta and some of these cheaper flights. I mean, that's how big of a hub it is, They'll fly you from Detroit to Atlanta, and then they'll bring you out west to, I don't know, maybe California or something. I mean, it's a huge hub, So if they screw up there, that's like the worst place, one of the worst places to actually screw up, and it's just one plane ride away from something that's just out of hand. And I want to know what's going to happen with the healthcare professionals when something like this happens. Like they're going to face a.
I've already told you, and I may be condemned by a lot of your listeners for saying this. As a nurse, I'm not going to work. Absolutely not.
What about the police?
I have a bigger responsibility to my wife than I do to anybody else. That's the way I feel.
And what about
there are other professionals that I know that I work with who feel the same way, who are doctors, who are other nurses, who are firefighters, paramedics, who are police officers. I mean, we feel that, you know, we have a much bigger obligation to take care of those that we have living under our roofs before anybody else.
And if you're a police officer, you're going to have even closer contact, because even though you're not really a healthcare professional, you're going to be wrestling with people. You're going to be struggling with people. If somebody resists arrest or somebody does something crazy, I mean, you got to get physical with people. You know.
Well, we have to get physical with people in the hospital sometimes, Reg. But
yeah, I know.
These are the guys. You know, they try to, you know, they get bit, they get spat upon. You know, they have bodily secretions like feces and urine thrown at them in the jails. I mean, and I think it would be very selfish to have people expect these individuals to just, you know, take on these kind of risks. You know, when they're like, who's going to support my family if I die?
These people are so obnoxious. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Let me close this door.
Oh, you must step
No, this is like the noisiest place ever. You know, it's a rural area, but it's noisy as hell. I'm sorry. Anyway, it's so loud and noisy. Yeah, I mean, because you have a number of different paramedics in a situation where they have to, okay, do I go to work? Police officers, do I go to work? And then what happens to the structure of society when you have police officers, you have nurses, you have doctors, you have paramedics, you have firefighters who don't really want to go to work because they don't want to risk contacting this virus, right? Then you may have civil unrest, and who's going to respond to that?
Well, I don't know what to tell you, but I mean, if you're a parent and if there's an Ebola outbreak, are you going to be sending your kids to school?
Hell no.
I mean, knowing that, you know, kids, you know, we're talking probably elementary school age, you know, they're the cleanest creatures in the world. I say that facetiously. You know, they snot all over their hands all the time. You know, if there's an outbreak of lice, for Christ's sakes, in the schools, it spreads normally like wildfire. How much easier would it be for a disease like Ebola when you've got kids sneezing on each other all the time, sharing water fountains all the time, you know, sharing cups of water or whatever they bring for lunch all the time, before you're watching your kid, you know, have bloody diarrhea to the point where they die. I mean, who's going to send their kids to school under those conditions?
Not a lot of people.
Would you expect teachers to go to work and teach? I mean, I know that there are individuals who will criticize a healthcare worker for not going to work under those conditions. Well, why would you hold us to a higher standard than, say, your teachers? Because we have specialized education, we still have the same responsibility to our families as everybody else.
And you're still human beings. I mean, there's nothing.
That's right.
You're not going to be immune to this because you're a healthcare professional. It's not like the virus are going to say, oh, well, you know what, I'll let you get a pass or something. It doesn't quite work that way. Now, this is a question I've asked about police officers. You know, police officers working in an SACF type of situation, civil unrest, when society's falling apart. You know, what type of obligation do you have to your community, and how do you balance that with your responsibility to your family? So that's something that I've been talking about for a while, and it's interesting to see a situation where, you know, healthcare professionals will have to face a similar dilemma. So I just want to talk about that. So where do you think this is going? There's a lot of talk about this being airborne.
Hopefully it goes nowhere. I mean, my grandfather always said, prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully these guys in the CDC and at Emory University, they got these people all locked down behind 7, 8, 9 different layers of security and isolation. And, you know, hopefully everybody there is following the protocols that they need to follow. And you know, and I hope that these people coming back, I hope they regain 100% of their health. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of help they have after Ebola, you know, if they do live. You know, to see what kind of, if they publish what kind of damage has been done to their internal organs, like their heart, their kidneys, their liver. It'll be really interesting to, you know, I hope everything comes out just fine, but I think it's still an unnecessary risk. I think that there's nothing that we could have done for them here that we could have done for them in Africa.
Yeah, because there's no vaccine and there's no cure that I know of.
Oh, no, there is no cure for Ebola. That's the point. So I hope everything turns out okay. I mean, a lot of people are up in arms about this. And people are scared because we don't know anything about Ebola. We don't know if it's transferable to other species that we see around us all the time, like squirrels, rabbits, deer, birds. And here we're bringing a deadly virus into our borders, and there's still so many questions that we have.
All right, man. Thank you for calling. I really appreciate your input, man. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Hey, I would be interested if there's any kind of police officer, EMT, or other first responder who's listening right now. I would love to have them call in and tell us if they would go to work under these kinds of circumstances.
Great question. All right, man. Let's see what happens.
Thanks a lot, Reg. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, I mean, that is interesting. I've always asked, like, how would a... Oh, here's a call right here. Hey, welcome to the DEMCAD show. What's on your mind?
I was just kind of listening to your bit on Ebola, and I thought I'd throw out there that my family, at least myself and my family, we kind of have protocols already in place for things like this, kind of prepper type stuff. Not just Ebola, MERS, SARS, TB. You know, if we see something like that begin to spread, we're staying home. You know, my wife manages a big store, and I go out and I work as a mover every day. But it'll be no leaving the house for me, my wife, my kids as well. You know, I don't think we'll be able to get into the hospitals if something really bad happens. And why would you want to go there?
Yeah, I mean, you might be better off just trying to stay at home and see if you can get over it. But at this type of mortality rate, you're going to have more people desperate to get there. And how are you going to get there without having a healthy person drive you there and get you there physically? So, you know, a hospital may not even provide the type of care that a lot of people are going to be expecting, but they're just going to flock to the hospital hoping for them to do something. Same way that they turn to police officers to just do something when something bad happens. Hey, just do something. That's what people expect. So I think that's what people are used to, and that's what they're going to do. I don't know.
We're going to try. We in my house, we're going to try to stay on top of stuff like that by staying healthy, you know, and maybe doing a little bit of preventative, which is, you know, what you would do for any flu or cold or sickness. Eat right, you know, get lots of sleep. You know, if you're into the oregano oil and vital silvers and things like that, then try to apply those to, you know, to your daily life, just to add a buffer zone to, you know, to the potential of getting sick. Because once a sickness like that sets in, you know, there's really no safe place to go at that point in time. You are kind of an island, kind of on your own.
Yeah, then you got to isolate yourself inside your house, and that's going to be important. Well, that's when food and water becomes really, really important. Because you got to be able to wait it out. It may be a situation where you may be literally waiting it out, you know, and so it's.
You know, we may be waiting for weeks or possibly months to even see if this is going to go anywhere. And in the meantime, you know, I just encourage everybody around me to make sure that they're doing what they can to make sure they stay healthy. You know, wash your hands, be cognitive of people around you who might have a sniffle or a sneeze. I'm not saying avoid them, but, you know, just like you would under any other circumstances, you know, make sure that you're doing what you need to protect yourself and stay healthy, because even a corrupted immune system could end a really, really good life, you know, for you if something like this were to set in. And the same with TB, or MERS, or SARS, or
or any of the other fear-mongering, diseases that we hear about. It's hard to say if this is just being used as a way to keep society in check, to scare us a little bit, or if this is actually, a legitimate concern. It's really difficult to make it out in the news which way to go with this.
So, all right, thank you for watching. Thank you for calling. I sort of wanted to ask you, what did you think about them actually bringing it to? Well, no, I wanted. What about the concern in your family about people who are worried about losing their jobs? Because what if you overreact and leave and nothing happens? Well, I guess you'll get to.
We worry about that kind of stuff, but I honestly think that if it got loose in society, that my wife is a manager at Walmart, and she's really not in a position to tell them, hey, I can't come to work. That would probably end her job. But maybe better to overreact a little bit than underreact and not, and lose a family member or be exposed to something really nasty. That's the price you pay when you have to make those choices. We definitely we don't live off the grid, but we live in suspicion of government and health organizations and people like that. Just to be proactive in your daily life makes the most sense.
All right, man. Thank you for calling.
Thanks, man. Take it easy.
All right, you too. Yeah, it'll be interesting if we hear some people calling in saying what they would do if they were a cop or they were a healthcare professional, or what would you do? If you were in that type of situation, would you still go to work knowing that you would put your family at risk? Because it's not just about you putting yourself at risk; it's your family. While you're at work and things are falling apart, somebody could be attacking your home. It could be putting your husband or wife in jeopardy, your kids in jeopardy, or you could get contract this virus and bring it home. And we're using Ebola just as an example, but there could be other diseases, and that's a risk you will be taking. You be risking actually coming home. Like, so if you did decide to work in that type of environment, would you ever really go home until you knew for sure? Would you have to impose some type of quarantine on yourself? That's something that I think a lot of people would have to consider. And it's hard. It would be hard for people to put quarantines on their own family. It's something you could think about theoretically, but actually physically doing it, saying that, all right, Earl, you got to stay in this room, you got to stay in this area. I mean, that's something that could be really difficult. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, DEMCAD, how you doing? Johnny Ace here.
Hey, Johnny Ace.
Hey, a little bit of lag here. I'm going to turn the volume down on the YouTube. You guys were talking about, would you go to work? And, a lot of people probably won't. I want to bring up two things. One of them was the up to 21-day incubation period. So when you hear of a number, say they're saying 800 people are infected, you got to look back. Well, how many were infected last week and how many were infected the week before?
They say 826 were killed. I think 826 people died.
Yeah, but you got to figure out how long does it take. So because
typically it's about 5 days, but sometimes, some instances, it can take as long as 21 days.
Right. Well, there's a latency. So when they say 800 people infected, okay, that means next week there's going to be more. You see where I'm coming from, right? That's how many are infected now that they know of. The rest of them aren't showing the signs.
Now, this is happening mostly in isolated villages. Then they have a much better chance of keeping it contained. If this already moved to a bigger city,
what
then
I'm saying is, if you got infected, you wouldn't know it for 21 days.
Yeah. So you're always behind.
Right. So when you get a number, they say 800 people were infected, right? Well, what's that number going to be next week? Since there's a bunch of people that are infected that we don't know about. And the other thing about what this gentleman was talking about, would you go to work? Right now, companies have cut things to the bone. They really leaned out, most companies. And where I'm at, if we had only maybe 10% of the people calling sick simultaneously, you would have some serious issues in communications. I'm talking about internet, phones, everything.
Um, so in situations like this, we've been told that we can work from home. As a matter of fact, they actually prefer it. If you show any kind of sign, they don't want you to come in. But what I'm saying is things are cut so lean, so cut to the bone, that a few people not showing up is going to make things go really bad. Because we're already maxed out under normal situations, so now you put stress on the system. You would need more people even if everybody was well at a normal business.
So what will happen to the power companies, though? What happened to the water companies, where you have a bunch of jobs where you just can't sit at home and work on the communications? You actually have to physically be at a location. What happens then?
Oh, well, you have for the field techs. Well, okay, so field techs have a service level, that they usually respond to something within, 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours, so on and so forth. And as techs go on vacation, sometimes that goes out a little bit more. Now you put disasters online, and then you cut how many people are working. What happens is it's a multiplication of that factor, that time will go from 2 hours to like 2 days to 4 days. It could be really bad. And then it'll become to the point where it'll be priorities. You might not even get support. Your power might not come back on. They're going to put on the hospital grids. If you're on a hospital grid, those electric, that'll come on first. Hospital grids on the network support. If you're, Joe's restaurant and you lose your internet connection, well, I'm sorry, we'll get to it when we can. We've got some critical systems that will have to stay online.
And at some point,
seriously critical stuff that I can't tell you over the phone.
I can pretty much imagine.
But national security type stuff that would take precedence over anything.
Yeah.
So people will have to be patient, and it's gonna really suck. But you were saying you have to stay indoors. What they're talking about this is mostly just, contact, physical contact. That's what my question was surface contact. If you touch something that somebody else touched, you leave a restaurant, somebody else touched the door handle, that kind of thing, right? And then you reach the door handle. Is it going to transfer over? I don't know about that kind of stuff, and I don't know if they're giving us 100% accurate information on that. By the way, did you see the link I sent you about Dr. Horowitz?
No. Tell me more about it.
You probably want to see it on your last post. A couple posts I posted the link to it. It's a really long video, so sit down, grab a beer, and when you make yourself comfortable watching, about 45 minutes into it, it's going to be riveting. It's going to start off kind of slow, but basically he makes statements and then brings out all the facts to back everything he's saying about how this stuff started, AIDS, Ebola, whether it was invented or whether it was...
Put that in the room. Put that in the chat room. Put that in the chat room right here in this video, because I'm looking for that.
Well, I don't know where the chat room is, but I was posting it on YouTube. I posted it on where you've got your DEMCAD Live, Ebola Kill Day 26.
Oh, yeah.
But I posted the video on the one where you were announcing this.
Okay.
The previous one.
Okay, well, I'm looking at that right now. All right, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You said it's going to be riveting. All right.
Cool, but everybody needs to just kind of, be smart, be relaxed, and just be smart, So I think we'll get through it, and we don't know what to believe, whether they're just trying to freak us out or whatnot. But
some people are saying this is like a test run for something bigger.
I don't know if it's something that is there. I don't think there's any malintent on this, and I'm not so sure what's going on. It's happening as an orchestrated thing. We're getting bombarded with a lot of things all at once. So.
All right.
Then.
Appreciate the link, man.
Guys have a good evening. I appreciate what you're doing, man. This is great.
All right. Take care.
All right, later. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, that seems a little interesting. I'm going to call this one person back. Man. I'm kind of looking forward to this video. This guy, he said, is riveting. Okay. 45 minutes is riveting. You know, hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, DEMCAD? My name is Patty. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. First, I want to let you know that I truly enjoy your show. You're one of my favorite top 5 subscribers. And one thing I want to talk about was the gentleman that you were speaking with earlier, the doctor, who was wondering of the protocol for law enforcement in the state of emergency. And currently I'm in school taking up criminal justice, and my instructor, he's a cop, and saying in a situation like that, they have to respond and assist with the state of emergency, because he gave an example of Hurricane Katrina. Some of the law enforcement officers didn't respond. They stayed home with their families and protect and assist their families instead, and they all got laid off after their job.
So what was he basically saying? They have an obligation. If you're going to be a cop, you have to be prepared to take that risk.
Yeah, you have to assist in any type of emergency. It's along with the oath that they take once they get hired. And if you go against that at the time, it's even breaking that oath, and they will get rid of you.
Makes sense to me. But I mean, it's a decision that everyone has to make, and I can't tell people what to do. But it's something. I mean, I wonder how many cops will just go to work with like a NBC mask. Like, will they be allowed to do that? Because your face will be covered.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not fair. You know, I mean, like, your family's first, and you know, you got kids and a wife at home that you have to look after. I mean, you know, you want to do what you can to provide for them and protect them to get any form of, you know, evil or anything that emerged from the corners in that state of emergency. You know, I mean, people, you know, we already savages with rule of law. Imagine something without rule of law or society breaks down. Imagine how things are going to be there. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough choice that people have to make. So, what would you do in this situation if things were breaking down? And there was like a virus. It doesn't have to be Ebola, but something that's incredibly deadly, something with a high mortality rate, easy to get. I mean, at what point would you decide not to show up for work? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask people.
Well, once I've heard or there's been some case of the virus within my area, I would just stay at home and just lock myself in the house. I mean, I prep as well. I just got into prepping, and I give you credit to that. You kind of open my eyes to, you know, being prepared for the worst. You know, I have a few rifles and handguns and things like that, but I digress. But in a situation like that, like I said, I would just isolate myself from everyone and just stay in my home. You know.
So what happens when family comes over?
What was that?
What happens when your family comes over?
That's a tough one. I mean, I would tell them to stay put wherever they are in their home, just isolate yourself from the public. And if they're already out in public, I would just tell them to just don't get in contact with anyone. Go home immediately and stay in your home and just kind of keep nearby radio or television and just kind of stay updated on what's going on. And, you know, lock your doors, don't let no one in, just, you know, isolate and protect yourself until this thing passes over.
Man, that's got to be a really hard situation to deal with. You got family members.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, but you're talking about something that's just as deadly as Ebola. You know, you don't want to take that risk. And it's risky, you know. I mean, even locking yourself in the doors, it doesn't really guarantee anything if you're talking about something that's airborne. And that's, you really have to just throw a big plastic bag over your house or something just to keep that from coming inside or something. I mean, I'm just throwing stuff at my head, but, you know.
Wow. All right, man. Thank you. Thank you for calling, man. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, man. I love your channel, man. Keep Keep up the good work, man. I highly appreciate it.
All right, thank you. I will. Hi. What? Just so you guys can see stuff in the background, some of you guys might want to. Some of you guys may be wondering what the heck is that. Let me move out of the way. What you're seeing back there is a whole bunch of those boxes filled with pretty much dry food goods. Dry food goods. It's been dried up. There's basically MREs, essentially. There's MREs back there. You have that propane heater back there. You have the bug-out bag. You have a propane stove right there. You have a Berkey, a silver container thing you see up there. That shiny thing, that's a Berkey water system. Got some water laying around here. I got to get some more of that stuff. And these are just basic things I recommend people do to be prepared. Obviously, you want to have a firearm to protect yourself, ammunition. You want to know how to use it, and you need to be prepared to use it. So this is some stuff I just want to put out there, and I think these are some important questions. So guys, in the comment section below, share your thoughts. I mean, what would you do? What do you expect of law enforcement and the healthcare professionals in case there was a viral outbreak of something like Ebola or something airborne, and as a real bio threat SHTF. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for calling in, guys. I appreciate it. And don't forget, the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. Bye.